you very much, Anthony, and welcome everybody who is out there. Of course, I cannot see you, but I know that I do have some folks on the other end attending. So again, my name is Rhett. I am amongst other things, a Red Hat certified instructor, and I am currently physically located in Culver City, California, not too far from the LA airport. I teach out of at least 3 or 4 different centers in Southern California, and this week I happen to be up in the Los Angeles area. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be talking about some of the Red Hat course offerings and certification offerings that are beyond the RHCE, the Red Hat Certified Engineer. And that's sort of the goal of my presentation today. So without further ado, let me get into my topic coverage here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick review of what we call Red Hat Global Learning Services. That, as you're going to see, are the folks over at Red Hat who take care of training and certification. I just want to do a quick review of what the RHCE entails, and then get into some of the details of the more advanced products that are coming from Global Learning Services, things like certificates of expertise, advanced administration, and the Red Hat Certified Architect. I will have a little question and answer period at the end if you'd like to ask me some questions, and then we'll be folding this up. I'm planning on making this maybe about a 30-minute discussion. Alrighty? So here we go. Talk a little bit about Global Learning Services first. This is, again, the department or the team for Red Hat Incorporated that is responsible for training and certification. And from the very beginning, Red Hat has decided that that training and certification are a valuable product, and they make it valuable by the way that they deliver classes, or that we deliver classes and provide certification. It's all job role based, and everything revolves around hands-on tasks. So when you create or when you sit in a Red Hat class, you are going to be doing things, lots and lots of doing things, lots of hands-on. When you certify, the exams are all going to be performance-based. There's multiple choice in there, and so you really have to know what you're doing to get certified. And if you have any questions about anything that's coming out of Red Hat GLS, I have at the bottom there the URL to get to the GLS landing page. So www.redhat.com/training will get you to that particular, to the GLS information. The audience that I'm hoping to have out there are people who either already are RHCEs or maybe very close to becoming RHCEs, and you're interested in going beyond that. So that's sort of the point of the presentation here. But I just want to review a couple things about the RHCE really quickly. First of all, this is one of the top Linux certifications out there. This is a certification that a lot of both employers and just regular people decide that to get and to have. So it's a very good certification to have in the Linux world. It does require that you pass 2 exams, and it basically has an intermediate level of knowledge associated with it. You're going to be asked to do various tasks, and they're all kind of intermediate level. Nothing too deep, but a very broad scope of tasks that you have to be able to perform if you're going to be an RHCE. This happens to be, though, a prerequisite for most of what I'm going to be talking about. So like I said, hopefully you're either already at the RHCE level or you're thinking about getting there very soon. The RHCSA and the RHCE have a very long set of objectives when you take them together. And I'm not trying to list all of them here, but I want to focus in on a few because these are the ones that sort of lead us into the advanced stuff that I'm going to be talking about. So we look at things like local storage and various security aspects of Linux and installation of the Linux operating system. We look at software management, installing software, updating it, removing it, and things like that. We do a brief look at virtualization. That's not a heavy topic, but you do have to know some virtualization for the RHCE, and we do spend a fair amount of time looking at system management. But none of these are going to be in any great depth. You know, you get a good solid foundation in all of these, but that's about as far as we go when you get your RHCE. So we're going to be looking at, in fact, we're going to be looking at sort of aspects of this, but in a more deep way as we go through this little presentation. Now, the slide I just went to here, the cloud. The cloud is something that Red Hat is very bullish about. In fact, let me see if I can, I'm sharing my desktop here. I think I should be able to switch over. I've got the Red Hat website up. And if you look at the Red Hat website on the landing page, on the main page, there's usually this a few things that they are pushing, you might say, and one of them does happen to relate to the cloud, and that's this one here. There's a product called OpenShift that relates to cloud infrastructure. So Red Hat is really, really big on the cloud. That's one of their main focuses right now. Now, having said that, though, you may not have any cloud in your world right now, in your IT world, but you know, that's not a problem. There's a lot of overlap between what I'm going to be talking about and the cloud, but if you don't have any sort of cloud in your world, don't worry. It's still valuable that you may decide to go through some of these advanced training and certification things. Although if you are going to be interacting with cloud infrastructures in some way, then especially these advanced things can be especially useful to you. So what I want to do is I want to spend just a couple of minutes or so talking about some of the aspects of the cloud, because this does sort of fit in with what I need to talk about here. And what I want to do is I want to present really quickly a scenario and talk about online retailers. So imagine you've got an online retailer has a website set up so you can purchase stuff from them. From the user perspective, obviously, when you go to an online retailer, for example, you go to a web page and you're connecting to a web server. But it's very likely that behind the scenes there's going to be more than one actual web server handling the traffic for a specific online retailer. So imagine you've got a relatively small retailer who, let's say that they make, I don't know, let's say they're making or selling stuff that relates to the golf world. Okay, so about 6 weeks out of the year, 2 weeks around Father's Day, and of course the 4 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas, they're just slammed. They're busy, busy, busy. But the rest of the year, they're not all that, you know, they're not selling all that much. So what you end up having is maybe they use 2 web servers to handle the traffic for most of the year, but during those really busy times, they could maybe use 10 to 12 web servers to be able to handle their load. Well, the cloud is something that would allow them, cloud infrastructure would be something that would allow them to handle that load in a relatively cost-effective way. You're not going to be able to go from 2 web servers to 12 without any cost. There's going to be some cost involved, but spinning up additional web servers on the cloud may be a really, really good way to handle that. Now, I don't have a way to demonstrate an online retailer and a cloud like that, but what I am going to do very quickly is I'm going to just do a quick demonstration of a cloud-based tool or cloud-based product that comes from Red Hat. It's called Red Hat Online Learning, or ROLL. They host this on, at least they host the systems on Amazon EC2. That is and they're a public cloud provider. So let me just do a quick demonstration of this. So what I've done is I've logged on to the role website, and I've already authenticated as me. So I'm already logged in here. And what role is just a way for you to access, well, learning materials from anywhere on the internet. So this is definitely a cloud-based thing. And if I go to join a class, what is going to happen is that I'm going to have access to two systems, a server and a desktop, and both of those will allow me, I can click on each one of these and open up an interface that allows me to connect to a live system from anywhere on the internet, so I can do additional training. What I'm actually showing you here are things related to, well, RHEL 7 is going to be coming out in a few months or at some time in the future, and I'm getting access to some ways to learn about RHEL 7 through this cloud-based role environment that we have here. So this is a good example of how a cloud might be helpful. Who knows how many students need access to this? So Red Hat can get these various classroom systems to spin up, and they're not even in the classroom per se. It's just server and desktop are systems that are being hosted from the Amazon EC2 site. Okay, so that might be an example of a cloud infrastructure. Okay, let me get back to my slides here. So where is the cloud? Well, the cloud can be a public cloud like I just showed you. That would be where you're going to a public provider like Amazon EC2, and you usually access the cloud resources over the internet. But you can also set up a cloud in-house. You can set up what's called a private cloud in the data center, for example. And that way you can get some flexibility within your own environment. However, one of the key features of clouds is the fact that you can maybe be cost-effective, and having to do everything in your own or on your own site may not be as cost-effective. So it is possible to combine public and private cloud infrastructures together into what's called a hybrid cloud. This is really the focus of where Red Hat is going. So you can set up a combination public and private cloud and sort of connect them together. Reasons you might do that. Well, you might have a data security or data privacy concern. You want to keep the data local and in-house, but then be able to somehow use it out in the public world. Or maybe you just have a private cloud chugging along, and every now and then you need some capacity extension. You need more resources. Well, you can go to a public cloud provider and get those additional temporary servers up, and that way you don't have to worry about purchasing equipment in-house. So there's a number of compelling reasons to use what we call a hybrid cloud. Now, when you talk about cloud, you're going to see phrases: something as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. And these have their own acronyms. As an example of software as a service, you can consider Gmail to be software as a service, where someone is getting access to an email application across the internet. Platform as a service, you can, maybe that web server example I was talking about earlier, that might be an example of platform as a service. And even though I know that this is, I'm going to try to keep things as Red Hat as possible, but a good example of platform as a service is Microsoft's Azure server, which is SQL Server on the cloud. And then we also have what's called infrastructure as a service. And the role environment, the classroom environment I showed you there, where I've got the server and the desktop. In addition to the systems, you have networking and storage and all, the whole 9 yards. That's called infrastructure as a service, where you provide everything in the cloud. And again, that that role environment that I just showed you as an example of infrastructure as a service. Now, the reason I'm going into some of this cloud stuff, as I mentioned, is because there are some products out there that Red Hat has, and then there's pieces to the advanced training that fit right into the cloud. For example, most of the time when you're talking about the systems that are running on the cloud, those are going to be virtual machines. Those are very easy to create and bring up and tear down, etc. So virtualization is a huge part of what is usually in the cloud. There's probably going to be some specific storage in there. There's going to be probably networking if you're doing especially infrastructure cloud stuff. There's a whole bunch of security issues that you have to worry about, and of course the whole cloud has to be managed in some way. So those are some of the general things you might find in the cloud as far as on the IT side. Red Hat then puts together products or has products for the cloud, and they have their main piece is called the Red Hat Cloud Infrastructure, and this includes Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, REV, OpenStack, CloudForms. Talk a little bit more about each one of those shortly, but OpenStack allows you to create and set up the infrastructure as a service stuff, both private and hybrid, and then CloudForms is a way to manage that sort of cloud once it's been set up. And there's even a product here called OpenShift that supports creating a private platform as a service environment. And as you'll see, some of the training that I'm going to be talking about and the certifications revolve around these products. So let's talk about the specific offerings here, the specific products coming from Global Learning Services. One of the categories we call Red Hat Certificates of Expertise. And what these do is they take a topic or an environment, you might say, and go way beyond just the core system administration level. Most of these are quite advanced. They deal with very specific areas. They're what you might call a deep dive into a specific thing. Sometimes it's just a single product. Sometimes it's Red Hat Enterprise Linux as a whole. But regardless, it is a very deep look into some of the things that you can do with Red Hat products here. The exams for these are almost always going to be 4-hour long exams. They are very, very in-depth and very, very challenging. There are currently 6 Red Hat Certificates of Expertise certifications available and associated classes. And here's a list. I'm going to talk about each one of these individually. So starting with server hardening, okay? Server hardening, it allows you to set up secure RHEL systems, ones that are going to comply with a security policy that your organization has. And some of the things we cover in the server hardening class would be handling security updates, setting up secure user and authentication environments. We look at a product called IDM, Identity Management, which is Red Hat's version of IPA. We look at in-depth permissions and access control, logging, auditing, and a number of other things. And I've got the course numbers and the exam listed for this. In fact, I'm doing that for every single offering that we've got here. By the way, most of the courses are going to be available as there's 2 different types. For example, I see a 413 and a 414 here. The first one is usually just the class. The second one is the class plus the exam on the Friday of the class. So that's why there's 2 different course numbers typically. So that's the server hardening expertise certification. Then there's one specifically for cloud storage, hybrid cloud storage. This allows you to, using off-the-shelf hardware, set up high availability storage and also high availability storage in the cloud. And this class and certification look at the Red Hat storage server, investigates different storage volume types, how to do IP failover for NFS and CIFS, a little bit about geo-replication, which allows you to replicate things across different locations, and a product called Swift, which allows you to set up unified object and or file storage. And the course numbers and exam numbers are listed there. Okay, so hybrid cloud storage has its own certification, certificate of expertise. Then there is kind of related, because this has to do with storage too, but there is another sort of storage-related certificate of expertise on clustering and storage management. So we're looking here at RHEL storage and high availability. Specifically, we're investigating the high availability add-on, looking how to make services highly available. We look a little bit more at shared storage, and there was a brief mention of that at the RHCE level, but we get a little bit more details about shared storage. We look at a couple of different file systems that would be related to high-level storage management. That would be GFS2 and XFS. And then, again, we look at the Red Hat Enterprise Storage product in that class. All righty. Then one of the, another, as it turns out today at least, on the landing page for Red Hat, one of the other things that they're right out front with is this product called Satellite. And the Satellite server allows us to deploy and do systems management. So we can learn how to install the Satellite server and then use that to help deploy and manage systems. So we look at a lot of different aspects of Satellite server in here, along with a tool called the Subscription Asset Manager. We talk a little bit more about creating your own custom RPN packages using a product called Subversion. And we look a little bit at the Pixie environment as a way to support deploying additional systems. And then again, the course numbers and the exam number there at the bottom. So that's pretty much the big focus there, again, is on the Red Hat Satellite server. There is an expertise certification for performance tuning, the ability for you to tune your system for both performance and capacity aspects. So we look at tuning for various use case scenarios. In fact, a lot of the class is going to be, well, here's the scenario, how would you tune for that? We look at, and specifically some of the things we look at are for power consumption, for most efficient power consumption. We look at virtual environments. We look at memory and cache tuning. We look at how to better control CPU and memory usage using a thing called C groups. C groups is a very, very powerful tool that gives you a lot of flexibility in telling the kernel how to deal with applications. And we do a little bit of looking at how to gather data about the system so that you can do some better tuning. And again, the course and exam numbers are there for that one. And the final, and this is the newest of the certificates of expertise, this is one of those cloud things again, platform as a service. So we talk about how to develop, host, and scale applications in a cloud environment. That's what this one is about. And this revolves around the product called OpenShift, configuring and deploying OpenShift hosts, both infrastructure or broker systems and nodes. There's a custom web console and associated applications with OpenShift, and we also look at how to manage OpenShift resources. Currently, this class is only available via what we call our virtual training and our role environment. It's not available as an ILT class yet, although there's an exam for that one also. And by the way, if you do virtual training or role, both of those imply that you're not where the exam's going to be. So you have to schedule the exam separately for that one. Now there's also a series of courses and certifications revolved around just what I'll call advanced administration. These look at specific administrator roles, and these, one way or the other, are definitely directly related to the cloud. These expect you'll end up with a lot of detailed knowledge. Exams are about 3 hours long here. Maybe not quite, I don't want to say quite as in-depth, because some of these get a little more generalized, but at the same time, these are very challenging products. The Red Hat storage server, which is technically a certificate of expertise, is part of this family of products. Virtualization has its own administration product too, and then OpenStack, OpenShift, and CloudForms, all those are related to the cloud, have their own advanced administration pieces. I already mentioned the storage server administrator because that's really part of the certificate of expertise family. Probably the most compelling of all the advanced certifications, if you're just going to do one, this is what most people choose, and that is to learn about the Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, or RHEV product. RHEV allows you to deploy and manage virtualization. Underlying all this, of course, is at least if you're doing this on Linux, on RHEL, you're going to be using KVM, kernel-based virtualization. But one of the really interesting features of RHEV is its ability to actually monitor and maintain non-Red Hat virtualization environments. Okay, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. So this deals with deploying the RHEV product, configuring things like the data centers and the clusters and the whole storage aspect. Obviously, it's going to look at creating virtual machines. We'll talk about snapshots and high availability of your virtualization environment, creating templates, dealing with security, virtualization reports and monitoring, pretty much the whole 9 yards. There's a ton of good stuff in this offering here. Then we have the product called OpenStack. And if you see, the OpenStack platform allows us to basically get the whole cloud environment up and running. So we look at installing, configuring, maintaining the whole cloud environment using OpenStack, what's officially called OpenStack platform. So we overview this, install it, deploy the services manually so you can see how that works, set up some of the internal stuff, and look at deploying instances through OpenStack. Notice that the courses for OpenStack have a different prefix, CL for cloud, instead of just the regular RH. The CloudForms product is not offered except as an on-site, and there's no exam for this yet, but that's coming. So that's sort of in development if you want to learn something about CloudForms. OpenShift, which is basically the way that we can do platform as a service. We look here at deploying, configuring, maintaining the whole OpenShift thing, and then looking at how to make apps available through OpenShift. Okay. This class is also not yet available as an ILT course, and there is not an exam for this either yet, but that is also coming. Now the top level certification for Red Hat is called the Red Hat Certified Architect. This is the ultimate goal for some people who are, truly all about Red Hat. What this requires is an RHCE plus then various combinations of expertise and or advanced administration. And right now there's not a whole lot of RHCAs out there. So if you want to distinguish yourself among your peers, this might be one way to do it. Get your RHCA. currently the way that the whole RHCA program is set up, after you get your RHCE, this is the path that you would take. You would get 4 certificates of expertise. You need the satellite, you need cluster storage management, you need server hardening and performance tuning, and then you get your virtualization administrator. I've got asterisks next to a couple of these because there are some older, no longer available classes and certifications that still can be applied to an RHCA. So if you have some of the, if you have a couple of those older certificates of expertise, you still can maybe get your RHCA without doing exactly what I've shown here. The training website would fill in those details for you if you want that. But again, this is, like I said, some people have this as their goal. If you can achieve this, then you're pretty much really special. That takes care of the details that I want to provide to you guys. I'm going to view my control panel to see if there might be any questions or anything out there from anybody. If there aren't, that's fine, but if there are, you might want to, in fact, it's probably going to be easiest just to maybe type a message in the text chat for the Citrix session here. I'll just wait for a little bit. If I don't see any questions, I will assume that there aren't any. Okay, so far so good. All right, well, I don't see any specific questions right now. I'll come back to that in just a little bit, just in case something shows up a little bit later. And at this point, then, I'm pretty much done. So just to kind of wrap things up, even though you may not be in the cloud right now, Red Hat definitely is, and a lot of what they're doing as far as advanced certifications revolve around the cloud. Remember, there is these individual certificates of expertise that you can achieve. You can get various advanced administrator certifications, take classes in advanced administration, maybe even become an RHCA. And your next step, if you're interested in anything here, would be, and I'm sure you got invited to this by someone from New Horizons, so you can contact whomever invited you to the webinar and maybe get some more information about how this goes and how to proceed. So I'll go back one more time to my control panel, see if I have any additional questions. If there aren't any, then I'm officially done. By the way, I'm teaching a class today, so I'm actually in the middle of a lunch break teaching a class. So I will be getting back to my class and teaching a bunch of Windows admins how to be effective Linux admins. That's my goal this week. So if there's no other questions or no questions out there, thank you very much for participating, for attending, and good luck in everything that you do, and thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
So Rhett and I will stick around for another 2 or 3 minutes. If there's any questions, feel free to type them in, and I'll relay them to Rhett.
Anthony, are you there?
Yeah, I am. I'm just monitoring the chat box right now, and if they have any questions, we'll stick around for just a couple of minutes.
Okay, very good.